Well, the field's getting smaller. If you haven't heard, Chris Christie, who had a disappointing night last night, has officially dropped out of the race. Sixth place is where he ended the evening, and a lack of money, both factors forcing the New Jersey governor to call it quits. Carly Fiorina also has thrown in the white towel here, finishing even behind Christie in New Hampshire, dropping out formally today as well. One guy is not dropping out, and in fact, one guy who wiped out the field last night, won Donald Trump, topping the Republican field by nearly 20 points here. Donald was gracious, believing in victory. Well, gracious at least for the Donald.
We have to thank the candidates because they really ran. We have some very talented people. And to be victorious against some of these people, even if it's for 1 week, but believe me, it's going to be for many weeks, okay?
He even went to say, so, thank you until tomorrow, and then So anyway, Politico says that the Trump win is a clear loss for the establishment wing of the Republican Party. And in a piece called GOP Establishment Staring into the Abyss, which I thought was a great title, it says the following. Far from winnowing the crowded field of mainstream GOP contenders and allowing it to unify around a standard bearer, New Hampshire thrust it further into chaos. After strong wins by Sanders and Trump, the happiest guy in the world might actually be this guy, Michael Bloomberg. Remember when we spoke earlier this week about the conditions that he's already been on record as saying he would run? Well, last night was certainly a way towards that. And Andrew, as we said, just back from New Hampshire today, you could not craft a more worst-case scenario. I could see Rance Priebus just banging a table somewhere saying he wanted one person to emerge from the establishment, and that in addition to Christie, that somehow there'd be some clarity between Rubio, between Bush, between Kasich. Kasich had a good night. Bush had his night of relevance, you would say, even if he didn't get in the top three. And Rubio can still say, I had bad 3 days here, but I'm the same guy who did really well in Iowa, and at the end of the day, I got clearer sailing down south. They still got two guys from Florida in this, and until one of them sure the other one's dead, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, the only way this could have been worse for the GOP mainstream is if Christie had scored a little bit better and was still in the race, and then you'd have a four-headed monster in that range. Look, this is bad on a number of levels. First of all, you now have Rubio and Kasich as emerging from the two first election events as being mainstream candidates. Second of all, you revived Jeb Bush last night. I know it might just be a moment of relevance, but he's got that war chest that's just sitting there that he can use. He's got the money to actually be in play, and now he might get a second look as being a possible mainstream candidate. Look, Donald Trump's not going to go anywhere, and Ted Cruz is going to continue to have that far-right block. He's going to be the far-right conservative candidate all the way through this. I don't know how the Republican Party gets to coalesce this mainstream group together, but they have to do something soon, or they have to figure out how to flesh it out between the three that are still standing.
You know, Dominic, after Iowa, and how lethargic Trump seemed in the aftermath, he didn't even go right away, you know, as it relates with New Hampshire, and there didn't seem to be any enthusiasm. When talking with Andrew from the field on Monday and even on Tuesday, there just didn't seem. It just had, I know we talked to him, we had that idea that this might be a bad night for him and this might be it. He cleared the field. He lapped them. So once again, he confounds us.
Richard, bottom line is Trump is here to stay. Trump will be a force, whether we like it or not. And he might wrap up the Republican nomination before the Democrats have their nominee. There's no other way to look at this. But for the Republican Party, half empty, half full, I see the scenario as potentially half full. At least you still have a scenario, as the candidates are dropping like flies, where the party, and more importantly, the Republican base, can rally around one or two candidates to try and get around Trump. I don't see that happening, but you still have Bush, and you still have a scenario.
What they're saying, Andrew, is, to Dom's point, if you're Bush right now, you're not going to go after Trump yet. He and Rubio are in a death match. One's got to get the other one out here. And then they'll worry about Kasich. And I think Kasich, who seems the most presidential one of the bunch of them, he's made his own path here. So in a funny way, he's drawn a different electorate than the other guys are fighting over here. So it is you couldn't script a more polarizing and really mess of a field than they have right
If
now.
I'm Reince Priebus, I'm going to call Rubio, Bush.
And why would you be with that in first name, right? I mean,
I wouldn't really wish that on even somebody I don't. But I would call Jeb, I would call Marco Rubio, and I would call Kasich, and I would say, look, there's a lesson here from what happened between Christie and Rubio at the debate. And Marco, sorry if I'm talking to you that I have to bring this up, but you cannot just attack each other and think that that's going to solve all your problems. You can't just clear this one lane. You got to open up on
But
Trump
they're
if
going
you're going to go for it.
You would too if you were counseling one of them.
And Ted Cruz is going to have to start doing that too. Everybody's going to have to start realizing that, look, I can't get this to Cleveland and try to win this in a brokered convention. And unless we can do something to pull Trump down, he might have enough steam to run away with this thing unless we start going after him. Cruz is not going to win this thing in a brokered convention.
You know what the most bizarre thing? You look at where Trump's getting his voters. A lot of these guys are evangelicals. The one portion of the electorate, they're not all breaking for Cruz. A lot of them are disaffected and they're angry. You even have Democrats that are voting for Trump right now in certain states, like I saw in New Hampshire, because they feel that no one's listening to them. They've been forgotten. And you know what? I'm willing to take a chance on somebody outside the mainstream. The idea, and I spoke to a historian earlier today, that we'll have somebody from the business climate, right? I mean, also, happiest guy in the room? Michael Bloomberg last night. He's calling his buddy Kevin up and say, hey, this might sound so stupid. Even if I don't think I'm going to win, this is the best shot I'll ever have in my life. You know, Bernie Sanders, a 74-year-old guy with a worse New York accent than me from Brooklyn. And then I got, Donald Trump. You know, I got more money in my, ashtray than he's got, that he's actually worth, you know. I can run laps if it comes about who's the better businessman.
But Richard,
he could be serious.
Well, there's no could be. Bloomberg is deadly serious. But here's what I'm looking forward to, knowing both of them well. Can you imagine the dirt that's going to fly in the battle of two billionaires? Can you imagine the dirt?
Especially one that's actually willing to spend money like a billionaire, yeah.
It's going to be interesting. All I'm saying is don't write off Hillary, and this thing might be over with in terms of Trump getting the nomination. I know it sounds like I'm talking Mars talk, but Trump getting, Richard, folks, remember, this is coming after the first black president. Let's keep that in mind. And so you have a large portion of America that says this president screwed up. We want our country back. We know what that means. Obama knows what that means.
Well, we're going to speak about the issue of color in the next segment. Bernie Sanders, well, he didn't go down to South Carolina and Nevada today. He first went to New York, and more specifically, he had to sit down with this guy, and of all places, Harlem. Dominic was there as the Reverend and Bernie broke bread at Sylvia's. We'll talk about where that goes as the race for minority voters begins in earnest.